Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. It's the second biggest darting tournament of the year, the World Matchplay 2022. Me and Pieman are here to give you the big preview. We're going to comment on all 32 players. We've got 20 minutes to do so. It starts this Saturday, the 16th of July, and finishes 8 days later on Sunday, the 24th of July. In Blackpool, as always, I'll start by saying it's 6-1 the field. I don't think I've ever seen a darting major look so open. I know we said that about the World Championships last year, but it's getting more open and open as time goes on, and the quality is spread across so many different players and different contenders to win it. That's why me and Pieman are here to preview it and try and pick you the winner. Pieman is absolutely buzzing for it. Look at him.
I am. I really am. And I genuinely believe there's about half of this field that have some kind of chance of winning this tournament. And, you know, when we say it's open, it's one thing saying it's open between the live contenders, but you've also got this little undercurrent of 7 or 8 like up and comers that have all got some kind of chance of winning it. There's been some horrendous draws. There's been some very favourable draws, and that's exactly what we're here to talk through. And I think you're going to lead us in with quarter one, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we get there, the field was confirmed of 32 on the conclusion of 4 days of back-to-back Players' Championship action at Barnsley. Over this weekend just gone, me and Pieman were heavily involved there. No winners, unfortunately. Just the one change following the Players' Championship and Pro Tour qualifiers is in comes Rowby John Rodriguez, one Pieman is very happy with. I know that. And out has gone Ross Smith. In our last video, the one confident statement I made was that Ross Smith will qualify for the World Matchplay 2022, and he didn't. So that's just a sign of the form that I might be in. So 32 players are in, 16 from the official PDC Order of Merit, of which Peter Wright is the world number 1 and tops that list. They will be the ranked players for the purposes of the draw. Then there's 16 from the Pro Tour. They are not ranked in the World Top 16, if you see what I mean. They are all ranked for the purposes of the World Matchplay, but that's what we're going to swing through now. And as Pieman said, it has thrown up some very interesting ties in the first round, particularly. What we're going to do is I'm going to cover quarter 1 and 3. 8 players in each. Pieman's going to whiz through quarters 2 and 4. So every player, all the 32, are going to get a mention. It might be a short one. It could be a more in-depth one. So we're just going to start with quarter 1. Peter Wright, as he is the world number 1, is in the top of that bracket. He hasn't played really well enough this year to claim that he is the best player on Planet Darts, but that's how the rankings work, as we know, on the 2-year cycle. He obviously won the World Championship at the very start of 2022. He's done virtually nothing since. He was a virtual no-show in the Premier League, if you ask me. I think he won week 2 and did bugger all thereafter, got no way near qualifying for the playoffs in the Premier League. He's a big tournament player. There's absolutely no doubt in that about Peter Wright. He's the reigning world champion. This time last year, he told us he was going to win the match play. He did. And then after he won the match play, he told us in the interview he was going to win the world championship. He did that as well. One thing that's an overriding theme for me is that a lot of these players away from the Premier League, obviously Snake was in the Premier League, but a lot of these that were not in the Premier League haven't really been seen in a proper big darts tournament since the UK Open, which is in early March. So, you know, there's a lot of players that we might be saying, oh, well, they've not done a lot this year. Well, this is their chance now. This is the major season gets underway this Saturday in Blackpool, and Peter Wright's 8-1 to win it. In the first round, he's going to play Madars Razma. He's 300-1 for a reason. I know Pieman likes him more than I do, but I'm going to make this statement, and Pieman is not going to butt in. Madars Razma's got absolutely no chance of winning the World Matchplay. That's why he's 300-1. Next down in the bracket is Krzysztof Ratajski. Showed signs of a bit of a return to form at the Pro Tour over the weekend. He's just not as consistent as that second-tier operate that he was maybe pre-COVID. He's getting on a bit now as well, to be fair. He's 80-1. Is in early rounds of any big tournament is a threat, but as the tournament gets into the deep waters, he often sinks at that point. Krzysztof's going to play Bunting in round 1. Bunting's 100-1. Just struggles for consistency generally, Bunting. I do like Bunting, but he just can't seem to ring a few months together or a year together. He only managed to win 2 games in 4 days in Barnsley over the weekend. That's not good form coming into this. One man that was in good form in Barnsley was Johnny Clayton. He started poorly, to be fair, but he finished in good form. He made the final. He made a quarter-final and a final over the weekend. He did lose a couple of early first-round games earlier in the weekend, but is other than the Premier League, which he appears to absolutely love, Johnny Clayton. He made the Final Four again this year, won it last year. He has been off the boil somewhat in 2022, something we've highlighted on this channel before. But again, major season's underway, and it'd be no surprise whatsoever to see Clayton going deep in this tournament and others. He's an 8-1 shot, so a very similar price to Peter Wright, and it does look on the odds between those two who are going to win this quarter. But the final mention who is in the quarter, who Johnny Clayton's going to play in round one, is the man that sneaked in 16th in the Pro Tour qualifiers, Rowby John Rodriguez. Played really quite well over the weekend, had to do so to get the points to become the 16th rank. Had some big stage exposure, a part of the Austrian World Cup team. I can't see him beating the Ferret, to be fair, in round one, but he is one to look out for going forward. And as Pieman said at the top of the show, one of the youngsters on the up and coming through. But that's quarter one. Quick wrap up there. 8 players there. Pieman's going to go through quarter two. We're another 8 players, and I will say this quarter two is the best quarter of the lot. We talked about Damon Heta on our first video. No one would want to draw him. In fact, Damon Heta has come out with a terrible draw. We was thinking it would be the other way around. Someone who was the opponent of Heta would have had a terrible draw. It's actually Heta who, amongst others, is in quarter two, and Pieman's going to tell you all about it.
I am going to tell you all about it, but I think we have overlooked Dimitri Vandenberg versus Callum Ridds in quarter one. I don't know if you want to just touch on that one, but
I'm going almost too fast.
You're just getting a bit carried away. Yeah. It's easily done. I'm very excited. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the winner of Johnny Clayton and Rowby John is going to play one of Dimitri or Callum Ridds. So I'm sure you could talk us through them too.
So Dimitri, a finalist last year, is becoming more and more of a big stage and big tournament player as time goes on. He's the 9th ranked in the world. There's pretty much no reason why you can't go deep again in this tournament. We've got Clayton and Wright already in there. Dimitri is a 12-1 shot, so he's not far behind him in the betting. Callum Ridds, he won a couple of Pro Tour events, or at least one at the back end of last year. I think he's yet to win one this year. But again, he's one of them players that is on the periphery, if you like, but has just not had the time on a big stage this year. That is just how the calendar is. He's not been in a major tournament since March. There's loads of players you could say that about, and he's one of them. But I would expect Dimitri to get through that opening round.
Yeah, nicely done. That's a really interesting quarter for me. But we could talk about that at the end. I want to get you through quarter two, and this is the quarter of death. I think if this was a football tournament, they'd be calling it the group of death. This is just absolutely vile. The 7th favourite out of this 8 is Adrian Lewis, who just won a Players' Championship event. So that just tells you everything you need to know. Like Adam touched on, we were hoping Damon Heta was going to get a nice draw. As it is, he's going to have to beat Joe Cullen, followed by MVG, followed by Humphreys or someone like that to actually make the semi-finals. So it's just absolutely ludicrous. Let's start with Van Gerwen Lewis. 10 years ago, this would have been absolute box office. And you could say that 10 years later, maybe it's going to be absolute box office again, because Adrian Lewis has just ended a 3-year winning drought this very week. Just gone. He was really, really good at the Players' Championship. He's been knocking on the door for a little while, but I myself just started to question whether he was ever going to actually get over the line and win a tournament again. But he was thoroughly deserved it. And to be honest, it came out the perfect final for him, playing a guy in Boris Koltsov who was in his first final and never really was able to go with Adrian Lewis. So he comes into this week full of confidence. But look, he's going to need to be absolute 10 out of 10 to play MVG, who, like we've said about Wright, like we said about Clayton, seems to save his best for the big tournaments. He's had a bit of injury issues, as we know. He'll be absolutely relishing this and the opportunity to boost his world ranking again, because let's not forget the pay in this tournament is huge in effect to the world rankings, only behind the World Championship. So by lifting this trophy, you're effectively securing yourself in the top 10 in the world for the next 12 months, 24 months to come. So this is a great opportunity for these big players, and I would guess Van Gerwen might just sneak through, but I would love Lewis to bring his A game to the party and make a good fist of it. Joe Cullen and Damon Heta, horror draw for both. I could only imagine that Joe Cullen was absolutely furious to draw Heta, the 1 seed, as we said, that nobody wanted to face. And that's because he plays like a Premier League player. He certainly has done this year. He's averaging, around 98 for the year, which is just ridiculous when you also factor in that he's played the most matches out of anyone on the tour this year. He's hit more 180s than anyone on the tour this year. So it's very hard to pick holes in Damo's game at the moment. We've had him on. We've spoke to him. We've seen him win that World Cup. We are huge fans of him on the channel. The one thing I would say here is it's going to maybe come down to experience. Match play stage can get extremely hot. It's a rolling legs format, a little bit longer than you would be experienced in with these pro tours. We see the finals go to best of 8. Well, even these early rounds are first to 10, and then you're getting into the realms of 15, 16, 17. It's a long old slog, and I think experience up on that big stage could count for something. I don't want to rule Damo out here, but I think he's had a tough draw in Joe Cullen. I think this will be a really close game. I just wonder whether Joe's experience might just nick him over the line there. James Wade and Martin Lukeman again, a horror draw for Martin Lukeman in his first match play. Given the quality knocking around in darts at the moment, there's a chance it could be his only match play. I hope it's not, because I do really like Martin Lukeman, but to break into this, he's had to have a fantastic year on the European Tour in the floor, and then he gets chucked in this quarter. In terms of first round games, I suppose he would kind of fancy himself against James Wade. Wade not a power scorer, and he's not been in great form the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks. But when you look at Wade's year as a whole, really held his own in the Premier League, obviously making the Final Four, really good in the TV events that we've seen him in. And he seems to have found a little bit more depth to his game in terms of the scoring that we haven't seen for years. So I think you have to say that it would be extremely unlikely for Lukeman to turn Wade over here, especially when you factor in the stage and everything I've just said about experience. So probably have to go Wade there. And then Humphreys Aspinall is an absolute cracker again. Don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but every one of these games really is a gem. I think I just have to go with Luke Humphreys here purely for the year he's had. We've talked about him a lot on the channel as a potential World Championship contender. He's got in that winning habit now. He knows how to get things done and get over the line. Aspinall won't give him a minute. He loves this long legs format. I can see this one going really, really deep. But Luke Humphreys just seems to hold it together when it comes to the big moments now. There's no panic in him at all. If this goes to a last leg decider and Luke Humphreys have the darts, he'll serve it out in 12, no problem. He really has found that little extra bit of class on the big occasions. And of course, the match play could be the time that we really see him announce himself in this top tier. I think he's going to be in the Premier League next year regardless, to be honest. But if he gets to a semi-final or a final here, they're going to find it impossible to ignore. A really, really difficult quarter. As I say, you could make cases for 5 of them quite legitimately. I'm just finding myself leaning towards Luke Humphreys.
Yeah, and he's been in such great form, Pyman. He's just been in excellent form. He's won 4 Euro Tour finals already this year. Nathan Aspinall, one of my favourite players on the tour, looked to be edging towards some form over the weekend. Made a semi-final and a quarter-final in Barnsley. But yeah, he's had a horrid draw, as you could say about most people in that quarter. On to quarter 3. Going Price is the headline act, if you like, in this quarter. He's the world number 2. He's 7-1. He plays Martin Schindler in the first round. Injury and illness haven't helped Going Price this year. His Premier League campaign was a bit limp at best. Crowds are a bigger issue than ever for Price, and he's brought that on himself, of course. I'm going to make a massive, massive statement here, Pimer. I wouldn't be surprised if Going Price never won another darting major again.
That is a big statement.
And I know he's still pretty young in darting terms, but I just think that he's not got the same aura about him as he had when he was winning back-to-back Grand Slams. He obviously won the World Championship behind closed doors. And I think that the crowd issue is a massive one that he might never recover from, to be quite honest with you. Big statement, I know. But he's just not stand out as a, I was going into the World Championship last year, or you get mixed up with COVID, don't you? But he was the one to beat. But you can't say that about him now. You can't say that Going Price is the one to beat. There's others that are playing better than him and have been doing it consistently for at least this calendar year. He plays Martin Schindler in round 1. He lost the Pro Tour semi-final on Sunday. He'd be gutted with that because it was against the aforementioned Boris Koltsov. Schindler should be winning that game. But he's been steadily improving over the last couple of years. Lost his tour card, as we've discussed on here before. But he's got no fear of the big-name players. Will relish the opportunity of the upset of Price in the first round. And he'll fancy his chances, Martin Schindler. He really will. He's 150-1. He's probably too big, but is he going to win the tournament? Probably not. A man that has really returned to form, surprisingly, on the Pro Tour, because he normally never turns up on the Pro Tour. Dave Chisnell, 50-1 to win the match play. Enjoyed a really productive weekend. Last 8, last 16, last 16, last 4. I mean, there's not many people showed better form in Barnsley over the weekend than Dave Chisnell. Has done well in Blackpool previously. Chisnell often talks about the advantage that he can go home in between games rather than be holed up in a hotel. Yeah, he's a threat in this form. Chisnell. He's 50-1. He plays Hybrids in the first round. Kim showed signs of getting back to previous top form during COVID. The COVID impacted Players' Championships particularly, but he hasn't done a lot this year so far at all. Really, he's almost fell off the radar a little bit. Kim Hybrids always has the potential to throw in a monster average at the drop of a hat, 109, but then it's just making them performances more regular, which he struggled with. I expect Chisnell to beat him in round 1. Also in the bracket is Jose de Souza. He's 66-1. His form continues to slide, and his ranking will do if he's not careful. There's plenty of ranking money to defend in the coming weeks and months for de Souza. Counting errors continue, which is always amusing, of course. But he hasn't made the business end of a TV tournament for a long time. There was a period where he was absolutely smashing up the Pro Tour. He really, really was. It was racking up more titles than most people. That's gone out the window as well. Yeah, it's a concern. It's an ongoing concern, and I would be very surprised if come January Jose de Souza is is still ranked in the top 10. I think he's going to slide down the official rankings. He plays Gabe Clemens in the first round. Clemens made a Players Championship 18 final, but he got walloped 8-0 by Dirk. He's making a habit of that, losing finals. That's going to have to change at some point in his career, you'd have thought. Pyman's a big fan of him. He's 11-8 to beat Jose in the first round, and I think that looks a good bet to me, to be honest, with Jose's form. As I've mentioned, Pyman's giving it the thumbs up. There will be some other content provided by us with first round bets, if you like, but that was the standout to me as I was looking through. So 11-8, and look out for more detail on our first round fancies as we go. The final two in that part of the draw, quarter three, is Rob Cross. He's 18-1. Went out of the first round on the Pro Tour on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday last week. He won a couple of games on Monday, but that is far from ideal form coming into this major. Cross has been talking like he's been relishing the fact that he's not been in the Premier League this year, and he's been able to go under the radar a little bit. He's certainly one of them bigger players again that hasn't been in the big TV for a long time. UK Open way back in March. I've already mentioned it. I sense Cross is putting a lot of emphasis on the second half of this year himself. A lot of maybe a bit of pressure, maybe a bit of emphasis to really have a go, and he'll fancy going on a deep run in one or two of the majors. This could be one of them. I think this is a reasonably open quarter. I've said Price isn't in form. I've said de Souza isn't in form. So Cross could be the one. He's the world number 10. He plays Dobie in the first round. He's 80-1. One of them mid-tier youngsters that hasn't quite kicked on yet. And as time goes on, he's not a youngster anymore, Dobie. He's in that mid-age, if you like. It won't stop him fancying his chances against Cross in the first round. Another that has the ability to put in a sensational average 1 minute and be bang average the next. So that's Chris Dobie. He's 80-1. And that concludes quarter three, Pyman.
Yeah, nicely done. I agree with a couple of the shocks you were maybe hinting at in that quarter, but we can box that in another video. Just to run through quarter four, Michael Smith, the runaway favourite in this quarter, and some would look at this and say it's a weak quarter. I think it's a very interesting one, to be honest. Michael Smith faces Andrew Gilding, Goldfinger in round one. Great to see Goldfinger back on our TV screens. It's been a few years. One of Dart's great characters. If you look at Andrew Gilding, you know, he's quite the man, but he can play. Don't be fooled. The tape on his glasses and, you know, standing about a mile to the left and drawing up like he's doing a crossbow and arrow. This guy is absolute box office. And I'm telling you, there's nobody been better on the Pro Tour in the last few weeks. He's been churning out outrageous averages. 118 the other day. That doesn't happen by accident. You know, this is a world-class operator. But Andrew's previous struggles have always come translating it to TV. He was always one of these players, a little bit like Ian White, that just couldn't replicate his floor form on the television. His floor exploits have got him back here. I would dearly love him to come up here and average 100 and something and just blow Michael Smith away. I think it'd be hilarious. But realistically, I have to say his floor form is unlikely to be replicated here. I think Michael Smith just has a bit too much for him. But I'm sure Michael Smith is very wary of this first round draw. If Gilding turns up like he has been in the last few weeks, this could be an absolute cracker. I'll be watching that one for certain. Michael Smith to edge that one. Dirk van Dijvenbode plays Ryan Searle in a game that could also bring lots of fireworks. You don't have to go back far, maybe 6 to 9 months. And Ryan Searle was one of the players that we were talking about more than anyone else. I mean, he just looks like he's got the game to go as far as he wants, really. Really reliable scorer, really reliable doubler, one of the most reliable top hitters on the circuit. A very likeable bloke as well, who just seemed to be improving and improving. You had himself and Luke Humphries in a Pro Tour final not so long ago, and they were both talking earlier this year about how it was time for them to kick on now and start going and winning majors and competing for majors. Luke Humphries has probably done that a little bit quicker than Ryan Searle, but it is a little bit of a case of what you say, that out of sight, out of mind. We haven't seen that much of Searle on the TV in recent months, and it may be that he's just going to deliver us a little reminder here. He plays Van Dijvenbode, who we have seen quite a bit of on TV, made a Euro Tour final quite recently and got walloped, but that can happen. Dirk's form generally on the Pro Tour has been pretty good. I think we have to say he did win an event recently. He's won a couple this year. and his 180 hitting is second to none. I think he actually hits 180 so regularly that he's almost guaranteed one in every leg or every other leg, which is just like outrageous levels when you think about it. And when you've got that in your back pocket, you're never really out of a game when you can suddenly pull a max out of somewhere. It's so easy to get breaks back. But I do worry about Dirk as the format extends, because he does have these flat patches where he goes completely flat. And I actually think Searle's consistency might grind him down over this format. I think if it was a Pro Tour first to six, I'd be leaning towards Dirk. But I think the extra few legs maybe makes me lean towards Searle there. Gary Anderson plays Daryl Gurney in a clash of the old guard, and a lot of people writing Gary Anderson off here. Do we not learn our lesson? Gary Anderson knows when he's got to defend his money. Gary Anderson's been written off for the last two World Championships and had two really deep runs. Everyone's saying that Gary Anderson should retire when he goes out with this match play in the first round and loses all his ranking points. I don't think there's any guarantee that Gary Anderson goes out in the first round here. Daryl Gurney does have an excellent TV record against him. But I'm not going to fall down that trap again. I've done it a couple of times on this channel of saying that Gary Anderson's like a no-hoper. And then I backed him in the Premier League, and then he fell down a rabbit hole. But look, match play, World Championships are Gary Anderson's two events. He doesn't bother with the Euro Tour. He doesn't bother with the Pro Tour. He don't care. He does care about this. I could guarantee you he'll tell you he's barely picked up a dart in 3 months and he's been practicing every day. So do not write Gary Anderson off in this event. He plays Daryl Gurney. As I say, Gurney's got a good TV record against him historically, but he's not had a year to shout about. I actually think that him and Brendan Dolan, they've really carried the flag for Northern Ireland in darts. But I think you've got in Nathan Rafferty and Josh Rock, you've got like a changing of the guard in Northern Irish darts. And I actually fancy Gary Anderson to beat Gurney here. Where he goes beyond that is questionable, but I'm not going to write him off. He would face the winner of the final game in quarter four, Danny Noppert versus Brendan Dolan. I think Danny Noppert's a real dark horse in this tournament. I gave him a good mention on our last video. He just quietly gets it done in these big events. He's not a flashy player. He's not a fashionable player. He's not one of the first 5 or 6 names that comes into your head to go and win a tournament. But we've seen him. He can do it. He can do it averaging pretty low, and that's because his doubling is very reliable. He's got a really rock-solid game. He hangs around. He's playing Brendan Dolan here. Now, Brendan won the most recent Players' Championship event, but in his interview afterwards, he himself admitted, I had some good Players' Championship form last year, but I'm not able to do it on TV at the moment, and I feel like I've lost my buzz on TV a little bit. Obviously, I'm sure he's quietly fancying turning up here off the back of that Players' Championship win and doing something, but I have to agree with him, unfortunately. Not seeing the best from Brendan on TV in a few years now. If it was a floor event, I'd be interested in him. As it is, I think Danny Noppert gets it done. And I think Danny Noppert and Gary Anderson in round 2 would be a really hard game to call for me. But yeah, a really interesting quarter. And I'm hoping Andrew Gilding can go all the way, but I very much doubt it.
Well, he's 100 to 1 to be doing so, Pie Man. We've quickly, rapidly, like Ricky Evans, who's not qualified, gone through 32 players there in about 21 minutes. That only leaves us to tell you who I think's going to win, or I think who is the best bet. It's got to be from the lower half, from the bottom half of this draw. And it's one most. There's 2 players I'm going to put up. Danny Noppert, recently mentioned by Pieman, 33 to 1. I think he can get past Dolan. He would probably be favourite against Gurney or Anderson, in my opinion. And he can beat Michael Smith. We've already seen that this year in the UK Open, the reigning UK Open champion. I would also be looking in quarter 3 as well, but I've not got off the fence yet in terms of who I'm going to back.
I'll get you off the fence. Should be Dave Chisnell, I think.
It might be Chisnell. It might be Rob Cross. So the definite bet is going to be Danny Noppert, and I will be backing one of Chisnell or Cross. Pie Man, you've got 30 seconds to tell me where your money's going.
Totally agree with Noppert. I think Chisnell's the bet in quarter 3 because I just think Cross is a bit too short. Yes, he's got the more favourable jaw, but I actually think Chisnell's in much better form. And if they were to meet, I would very much fancy Chisnell to prevail. So yeah, I think they're the bets in the top. Like in the bottom, like you say, the top is an absolute nightmare. That quarter 1, I was quite keen to get one of Callum Ridds and Robbie John on side, and they both got horror draws. So I'll be avoiding that. You have to say Peter Wright's got a kind draw to round 3, and he's one of these players that can just grow into a tournament and become very hard to beat. You want rid of him early, really, don't you? I've got to give Luke Humphries a mention. I just think he can make the final of this very, I don't think he has to do anything different to what he's been doing in the last few months to make the final of this. I know it's a horror draw, but I wouldn't be put up with him. And you get a bit more juice in the price. I think he's about 12 to 1 outright. So very lively runner.
It is a horrid draw, and I think this could be the last time for many years that you get Luke Humphries at a double-figure price for a major tournament.
Agreed.
It could be, it might not be, but make note, Pieman 12-1, Luke Humphries. There'll be more content coming up, maybe some round one stuff, some short videos from Pieman or myself, or both. So keep tuned, and we'll be back with more for which is a massive tournament, the World Match Play. And one thing I will mention, if you've made it this far in the video, Pieman, I was going to mention, you always talk about betting 4 places each way in the Players' Championship. We don't call out bookmakers as a habit on this channel. We've said that before. There's one bookmaker betting 4 places each way, and that is Betfred, the sponsor. So
credit to them.
Yeah, fair play. I will give fair play when it is deserved.
And they're top price standing up as we speak. So, I mean, well, you can't argue, can you? 4 places, top price.
33-1, 4 places. You get a bit of money back should you make the semi-final. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.